Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Doolittle, joined as always by the resident Packers fan, which may come into play in some of our lines this week, Mike Burke. Burke, we had an interesting week in the NFL. Some trends continued. Some trends started to form. We've also got some sick NBA action going on, so I want to talk about that. But first and foremost, most importantly, do you know what we were doing 2 years ago on this very night?
Was it 2019, 10/26?
Oh, you
Sounds
better know.
like I think I was at your wedding.
You sure were. We were having a blast at our wedding, and we're going to do something similar coming up in a couple weeks. And it's hard to get everybody together like that. So just wanted to throw that out there. That was one of the last big gatherings we had.
That might actually be the first time that we're all together since your wedding.
Well, it could be because we were like the last hurrah before COVID shut everything down for a long time.
So really looking forward to it. The wedding was a great time, and hoping for a better time next weekend.
Yeah, it should be a good time. Should be good. So let's start tonight. We got a bunch of sports in flux now. It's a great time of year. We got baseball World Series. We got NBA starting up. We got NFL right in the swing of things. I'm sure we have hockey at some point, but who cares about hockey? The WNBA just finished. So let's start there with the World Series. Interesting series. Unfortunately, our Sox aren't in it. The Astros are the favorites over the Braves. The Braves were like, a 500 team or almost a 500 team in the regular season. So it's kind of crazy that they made it here. There was talk of them tanking around the All-Star break because things weren't going their way. Around the trade deadline, they made a couple moves, really improved the team. They lost, who did they lose? Acuna, right?
They lost Acuna to, I believe it was an ACL, and they also lost at the very beginning of the year their ace and the staff. So he's barely pitched all year. But, you were right. They've been floating around 500 for a very long time in a very mediocre NL East division. But they got hot after the trade deadline and made a run and a push, secured the division pretty quickly. So it was really a stress-free September for them. And the Bats have come alive. They've really played well the last several weeks, and now they got a chance to win the whole thing.
Yeah, so really good for them. A little surprise of the NL. I don't want to say I'm happy to see him take down the Dodgers, but one of my best friends is a big-time lifelong Braves fan, so I'm happy for him to get to see his team in the World Series. And we were texting all the last couple weeks. Unfortunately, my team couldn't join him, but we've got the cheaters, the Astros on the other side. So I think, it's un-American to root for the Astros. We need the Braves to win, right?
I agree. I am pulling for the Braves real hard. I think Freddie Freeman is one of the most underrated players in baseball. I mean, he doesn't get as much press as, say, a Trout or a Mookie Betts, but he's been just doing his thing for several years now, and it's great to see him take the team he's come up with all the way and have a chance to win the title.
Yeah, it's probably one of the problems with baseball. We talk about this all the time, right? Like Freddie Freeman is a star, one of the best players on his team. The Braves have gone deep in the postseason at least the last 2 years, and now to the World Series, and just not a lot of recognition. I think of Freeman as an equivalent to whoever you want to say in the NBA, like a Jason Tatum type, maybe not like the top of the top cream of the crop superstar, but still like an emerging star in his own right, best player on his team. And I bet a lot more people know who Jason Tatum is or would recognize Jason Tatum than they would Freddie Freeman. So that's an interesting conundrum that baseball's got itself in. We're both pulling for the Braves here. We hope they pull it out. They're underdogs in the series. I think they're around plus 130 or plus 140 the last time I checked to pull off the series, so not huge dogs. If I had to make a pick and put some money on it, I'm saying the Astros in 6, which is plus 420. I'm not going to put money on it, though, because I can't bring myself to root for those Astros for even 1 second. You're going the other way. Is this an emotional pick or is this a logical pick?
This is 100% emotional for me. I can't stand the Houston Astros. I know they got a very good team, but just what happened a few years ago and all the allegations and stuff, with the bulk of that team that was part of the allegations still there, I really can't trust them. Braves haven't been here for a very long time. Braves are hot. They just took down a 107-win Dodgers team with superstar after superstar throughout that lineup and handled them in 6 games. I'm pulling for the Braves here. I'm going to put money on the Braves to take this series in 6 games.
And that's at plus 550. So that's some juicy odds if you believe that. So to do it in 6, they would that would be in Houston. Well, I guess it's going to be in Houston either way, right? How do they do this? 6 and 7 are in Houston?
Yeah, so it'll be 1 and 2 in Houston, then 3, 4, 5 in Atlanta, and then 6, 7 back in Houston. So regardless of how we see it playing out on one side or the other, it's going to end in Houston. But I really hope it's the Braves coming out on top like the Nationals did a couple years ago. Another NL East team taking home a full season World Series title in Houston. It's going to be back-to-back now. I believe the Braves are going to do it, and everybody across the country will be very happy that they did.
Now, do you take that into account when you bet baseball? Because you're a bigger baseball bettor than I am, or you know more about it than I do. But obviously in the NBA, the series is a little different. So the game setup is the higher seed gets the first two, and then the lower seed gets the next two, and then it's 1-1-1 versus MLB is 2-3-2 all the way through. Do you take that into account when you're picking these things? Because it feels like home field should matter more in baseball than other sports because the dimensions are literally different. Football and basketball, you get your crowd, but the field and the court is the exact same, right? So do you take that into account?
Not really, because most of the playoffs is dealt from the same dimension of 60 feet 6 inches away. It's real. I really look at pitching matchups and how teams are throwing. Astros don't have as strong of a rotation as they've had in the past. Obviously, Verlander's been out for the year. Greinke's not what he is. A lot of younger guys. They did step up against the Red Sox, but I think the Braves are another animal. They're hot. They've got proven playoff experience with their starters who have been throwing a lot of experience throughout that lineup. I really look at the pitching staff and not really who's home and who's away. It's really who's hot, and the Braves are hot right now.
All right, fair enough.
And unlike the NBA, baseball plays just about every day, so they can't really afford to do a 1-1-1.
Travel. Yeah, that's why they don't do it.
Travel would just kill these guys, so they jam everything up. And obviously, I think the MLB playoffs are the best run playoffs in sport because they go quick. Obviously, people are tired.
I don't think anybody's ever said baseball goes quick.
Yeah, I know, but from a perspective, you play a 162-game season for almost every day. The playoffs last less than a month to get from the wild card to the division series to the LCSs and then the World Series. It's going to end of October, first week in November. Unlike NBA, where you got 2 months of playoffs, which is basically another full season in itself, how that gets dragged out. But I really like the way baseball does it. They just get everything in and out. But really pulling for the Braves here and really hope they can pull it off.
All right, so we're both emotionally on the Braves. I'm not putting any money on it. Burke's putting some money on it. Braves in 6 at plus 550. We'll see how that one plays out. First game is tonight. By the time you're listening to this, it has already happened. So let's see if the Braves get an early lead or if the Stros take up their first game, which they should win as favorites. Moving on to the NFL, we had Week 7 in the books. A couple interesting notes. 6 teams were actually on bye this week. I don't know what the hell. So you want to talk about scheduling. The NFL did a horrible job of this. It doesn't – they have an extra week now, and yet somehow we have 6 of the – some good teams on bye for the first week that there are byes, which is crazy, or the second week there's byes. I don't know. But 6 of them were on bye. It was a fantasy nightmare. It was a betting nightmare because a lot of the lines were tougher because of that. But actually 2 of the 3 big favorites that we talked about last week covered. You had the Bucks laying 13 over the Bears. I was on the Bears in that one. They just never had a shot from the start. Game was 21-0 before you blink. The Cards covered over the Texans, so that game got up to 20.5 at one point. Smirks is not allowed back on our podcast, I guess, because last week he made his guarantee pick that the Texans would cover 17. He could have taken them at 20, 21. They still would not have covered. And they were actually leading in that game for a while. It was like 2-0. They got a safety. So it was 2-0. I think it was maybe 5-3 or something like that for a while. And then the Cards just picked it up and ran away with it. The only big fave that didn't cover is our fave team, the Rams. They were actually sweating that one out against the Lions, and they very well could have lost. I don't know if you watched that game. The Lions had 2 fake punts on 4th down. They did an onside kick in the first quarter. They were playing to win that game. That's dangerous. That's why I like these teams like the Lions that are losing but trying to win.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions, I think, are one of the best 0-7 teams I've ever seen. They love their coach. They're playing really hard for their coach. They're just coming out on the short end of the stick each week. They have nothing to lose right now, and that's one of the problems you see with these big lines. You got teams at this point in the season that they're not going to throw away games, but because that's just not what a professional athlete should do. for the competitive nature of everything. But the Lions are a scary 0-17, and a little foreshadowing for one of my locks for this week. I think they got a pretty solid matchup this week that they have a chance to pull off. But yeah, I mean, you got the Rams who are coasting right now at home.
Well, you look at their schedule, and I'm going to pull it up right now. I think we were doing this at some point this week, but they realistically, so they are 6-1, right, through 7 weeks. So
Right.
they play the Texans this week. They play the Titans in LA after that, 49ers, Packers, Jaguars. There's a chance they're looking at one loss, maybe 2 worst case losses by the time we get to December. They could have 13 or 14 wins this season.
Yeah, and they were one of our big picks from the beginning of the year, and the schedule lines up very well for them the next several weeks.
Yep.
But then going back to these big old lines, you could get caught looking ahead and get caught up by the teams that shouldn't be in these games, and they'll keep it close just because.
I don't know who they're looking ahead to. They play the Texans this week.
Well, yeah, but they got the Titans the following week who are hot, and if there's a big one, I don't know what the spread is on this on the Texans and the Rams this coming week, but
I'll tell you when we get to this week, but it's another big one for sure.
So I would look to take the dog on this one. Smarts might have been a week too early on the Texans.
So I love this. The FanDuel does the regular season wins, and they update them throughout the season. What do you think the Detroit Lions win total is right now? I'll give you a tip. Before the season, it was set at 4.
2.
It's 2.5. The over is juiced plus 135. So you think they get 3 wins? I don't know. Probably not. It feels like they already should have 2 wins, and if they don't have 2 wins already, I can't see them getting a 3. I would still take under 2.5. I think there.
Yeah, I mean they still got the Packers.
Yeah, so I mean we'd have to look at the schedule, right? Let's look at the schedule.
Let's run that real quick. I just
not
don't.
That either of us are betting on Detroit Lions.
I also don't follow the Lions religiously to know their schedule by heart.
Yeah, so they got the Eagles this week. Eagles, Steelers, Browns, Bears, Vikings, Broncos, Cardinals, Falcons. I mean, I've seen harder schedules. It's not so bad. They've actually played a pretty hard schedule. Rams, Bengals, Vikings, Bears, Ravens, Packers, Niners, Colts. I don't know. 2.5 seems about fair. I'm not laying any money on that, but it's interesting. Keep up with these win totals as you go through the season because you could find some value plays probably. You never know, right? So I would just keep up with those.
Yeah, I think they could sneak 3 out of their remaining schedule.
Yeah.
Now that I'm looking at it. I would take the plus money there, I think.
Yeah, it's probably a stay away from me. I don't like betting on these bad teams, but maybe some value there. Hey, Thursday night, we had a 2-unit winner guaranteed by yours truly. I was pretty adamant about that on Thursday night. My tip of the week last week was bet with conviction, and I did that right away. Right after this episode aired, we put 2 units on the Browns to cover whatever it was, 1.5, 2 at game time. They win by 3. More importantly, Durance Johnson kills our rushing prop. What was it, 56.5? And the dude had 40 in the first quarter. I think he had 32 on the first drive. He ends up with over $120. Killed it for me in fantasy. Great pickup of this week. It just dominated this prop. We were winners on Thursday night. Not a great game, but it was a great game if you were betting with us. There's only one team that is still undefeated against the spread. Do you know what team that is?
Oh, that's a good one.
Usually by this point in the season, there's none.
I don't think it's the Cardinals. We would know if it's the Cardinals, even though they're 7-0. I don't think it's them.
The Cardinals are actually 6-1 against the spread.
I don't think Green Bay is either. I know they've covered a lot.
They are 6-1.
It's definitely not the Chiefs. Close. Definitely not the Chiefs.
Oof. You got second and third. Arizona and Green Bay are the only one-loss teams against the spread. They're both 6-1. Tennessee is 5-2. Indy is actually 5-2.
Hold on, I'm gonna get one good guess in here. Is it the Bengals?
No, it's not the Bengals. They're 4-3 actually. Oh, that's surprising. Dallas Cowboys 6-0 against the spread. They've covered every single week, and I think I've bet them 4 or 5 of those weeks. So maybe we look at them because that streak doesn't hold up forever. These lines usually adjust. There's usually no team 6-0 against the spread. So this week they are playing Sunday night in Minnesota, laying 2.5. Maybe we'll look at the Vikes there if it gets to 3.
No, I don't trust the Vikes. I really don't, and you're going to see
Game
that later.
total set at 55. Yeah, I don't know. I might lay the 3 there, maybe 3.5 on the Vikings. So let's see. You can get 3.5 on the Vikings right now. You could take, and I'm taking a minute to look into this because I really like this. I don't think Dallas can go 7-0 against the spread. You can get 3.5 for minus 120 on the Vikings. I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. I think everybody should play that right now. It's a Sunday night game, so it's Halloween night. If you end up watching the game, Vikings plus 3.5 is my pick there. You said it. It's certainly not the Chiefs that are undefeated against the spread. They are 2-5 against the spread. Down there with Miami, 2-5. San Francisco, the Jets, and Washington football team all 1 win against the spread. Like we said, Green Bay and Arizona, 6 wins against the spread. So this is something that I like to monitor because usually most teams are around 500 against the spread. There's a couple outliers in both directions, but we usually like to see some regression this time of year. So teams like Tennessee, Arizona, definitely Dallas, we want to regress them to not lose the game outright, but lose against the spread because these numbers adjust. And teams like Washington, the Jets, San Francisco, they're going to start covering these bigger spreads because the lines are going to adjust up. Teams usually regress towards the mean. So just something to look for as we move forward. You have any thoughts on that? Do you follow these trends at all?
I don't really follow against the spread trends for the NFL as much as I do college basketball. There's teams that you could ride for a very long time and be very profitable on in college basketball, just the way they play the game, the skill level that they're playing against. I think it's more beneficial to go the younger route with the college football and the college basketball. But I just think the professional football players, you just don't know what you're going to get each week, and I don't really follow those trends too much when I'm making picks.
Yeah, I think it's something to look at, something for us to keep an eye on. So let's see if that comes true. Let's regroup in a month. Let's see if Dallas is 7-3 instead of 6-0. Let's see if Washington is now 4-7 off of 1-6. I think these teams start to cover these spreads. Again, doesn't relate to the actual outcome of the game, but you're going to start seeing, and you've already seen, bad teams get more points and good teams lay more points. To get these numbers to even out over the course of a season. So speaking of teams laying points, we have a Thursday night game here that is set up to be a monster. 2 Titans against the spread and 2 Titans in the NFC. Thursday night, we have Packers at Cardinals. Now, this line opened at 3.5, and we were talking about this over the weekend. I actually bet it at 3.5, and I took the Packers plus 3.5 because I thought Washington was going to push Green Bay, which they did. I don't know if you were tuned into that game, but they got stopped on the 1-yard line twice. They went inside the 10-yard line 3 times and had no points. So in theory, that game was a lot closer than the 14-point margin indicated. But I thought that line was going to go below 3, and I like the Packers catching points. It's now 6.5 because of Devontae Adams probably missing the game. There's still an outside chance he plays. Right, he has to test negative today. I don't know if he did, and then again tomorrow on Wednesday, but he's probably not playing.
It's looking like no, and Alan Lazard just came. He just went on the COVID list too, and Valdez-Scantling has been out, so we could be going.
I think he's back.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but still, you'd be looking at, if Lazard and Adams are out, your top 2 wide receivers that Aaron Rodgers will be dealing with against an undefeated team on the road. It would be MVS if he's coming back, and Randall Cobb, which will be very difficult to pull off on the road.
It'll be a test. That Green Bay defense, though, isn't awful. And I think the Cardinals, their offense looks impressive. I don't think it's that impressive outside of these chunk plays. I think they score kind of in bursts. They're kind of like the old Chiefs team, but Chiefs light, right? They score on these big electric plays. I don't know if you make them put these drives together back to back to back, if Kyler can do it. I know he's a good talent. I don't know. Thursday night, 6.5 points. I don't think the line should have jumped that much. So just for everyone's reference, let's say that this line was a pick 'em. So everybody's in, and the Cardinals and Packers, the line is neutral. There's no points given either way. If Rodgers was indicated to be out after that line jumps to Arizona minus 7.5. I think they usually give Rodgers, they give quarterbacks somewhere between 6 and 7. And the Cardinals, since it's Rodgers in this case, they probably give him an extra half point. So the best quarterbacks in the league are worth 6 to 7.5 points, right? You're giving me 4 points almost. Well, 3 points, I guess, 3.5 on a wideout being out. that just seems like too much to me. So I'm taking the Pack plus 6.5. I'm even taking them plus 3.5 because I have to, because I already bet it and I can't cash it out. You're going the other way on this one too. You like the Cards?
I mean, I'm a huge Packers fan. They've had history of struggling against mobile quarterbacks, and Kyler Murray is a mobile quarterback. Their defense isn't set up for that. They still got plenty of injuries outside. They're going to be going up against DeAndre Hopkins without Jair Alexander. Kevin King will be the one guarding him if he's playing this week.
God.
So I think this is a very, very ill-timed matchup for the Packers based on all the circumstances surrounding the team with COVID, injuries, etc. I'm taking the Cards here, even though I love the Packers to death, and I'll be very happy if they come out with a victory, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, you made me think about Kevin King and rethinking my pick here. That guy is I never want to hear that guy's name again. So I'm going with the Packers on the road. I just think 6.5 is a lot of points to be catching. The total on this one is 50.5. Seems a little high. I don't know. I'd probably lean under there, but I'm not going to make a pick there. Since I like under the total, I'm going to stand true to my word and say if I'm going under, I'm probably taking a dog if it's 6 to 7 points in this case. Packers money line is plus 235 for those interested, but I'm laying the points, or I'm grabbing the points. Burke is laying the points with the Cards, so we'll see what works out there. On to our locks for week 8. Burke had a great week last week, 3-0.
3-0. We have turned the tides.
Yeah, buddy. I think I was, 1-1-1. That stupid Falcons game. I don't know how it pushed at 2, but it did.
The Falcons and the Dolphins are two absolutely atrocious teams. So you knew that was going to – you should have known. You should have called the push from the get-go. You probably would have made a lot of money if you could.
Yeah, it's funny. They scored to go up like 19-7. And I was texting our other buddy Larry, and I was like, they got to go for 2 here. They have to go for 2 because the Dolphins are going to catch up. The Falcons suck. And they kicked the extra point, and I'm like, man, right from this moment, I'm not covering the spread. It's 20-7. That just reeks of a 2-point game, and what do you know, it was. So I'm 5-3-1. Burke is, I don't know. Did I do that right? It should be 3, 6, 9. Yeah, 9.
Oh, no. I was 1-8 going into this week. So I should be 4-8. But I mean, so it's better than being 0-8. That's for sure. So we've won 4 straight bets, and we're going to keep it rocking and rolling.
Yeah. So hopefully Burke can run the slate again this week. And let's see how it goes. Yeah, so I'm 8-3-1. Sorry, or 7-4-1. I don't know what I am. Whatever. Let's move on to this week. I think I'm 7-4-1. Burke's 4-8.
It should add up to 12 if we take 3 a week.
Don't I work in finance or something? I don't know. I got to get better with these numbers. 7-4-1 for me. 4-8 for Burke. We're all going 3-0 this week. That's all that matters. My first pick of the week: Browns -3 over the Steelers Sunday afternoon in Cleveland. Give me the 3 points for the home team. I don't know if Baker's playing or not. I don't care. I rode the Browns last week for 2 successful units. I'm going to ride them again. They're just better than the Steelers, man. This line should be 4, but the Steelers are getting some respect because they're putting some wins together. Ben just can't do it. Game total's 42.5. I don't know how the Steelers get to 21 points to even think about covering this one. If Chubb is back, great. If not, we just saw what Durance can do on Thursday night. It doesn't really matter who's back there. They're going to run the ball successfully. Keenum is fine. Baker is fine. They get the job done. They cover the 3 at home against the Steelers.
Yeah, I looked really hard at this game too, but knowing this is a big-time rivalry game, I think it's going to be tight. I just decided, you know what, I'm going to stay away from this one. I think there's better opportunities on the board for me to profit on. But I do trust you. They Browns have looked pretty good, even though they had Case Keenum against a mediocre Denver Broncos team. But I think Steelers-Browns is a little bit different than Broncos-Browns from a rivalry standpoint, just from an aggressive standpoint. I think the scoring is going to be very low. I think it's going to be a defensive struggle on both sides of the ball. But I'm deciding to stay away on this one. But my first pick, and going back to what I discussed about the Lions a little bit earlier, I think this is a very, very good matchup for them to get their first win of the season. The Eagles have not looked great. They got absolutely beat up against the Las Vegas Raiders last week. Back-to-back road games. You got inspired defense. You got an inspired Lions team who played fairly well against one of the top dogs in the NFC, if not the top dog in the Rams last week on the road. They come back home. They're getting 3.5 points. I'm taking the Lions on the points here. debated taking the money line, but I'm lying the points plus 3.5 with the Lions this week.
So you think? Now? Let me ask you: do you think they're going to win the game outright?
I hope they do. I really do.
Well, if you're going to bet the Lions, you're getting 3.5 here against that Falcons team.
What's the money line? What's the money line looking at right now? What's the plus?
It's probably like plus 150. I'm sorry, they're not playing the Falcons. They're playing the Eagles. Plus 158. Yeah. So they're at home catching 3.5. I don't hate it.
Yeah, I think at least if it's 3.5, I'm taking them. I think this is at least a 3-point game.
It's
which
still 3.5, minus 110 both ways.
But I'm definitely going to consider money line here. But for my lock, plus 3.5.
Plus 3.5. All right, I don't hate it. The Eagles aren't a juggernaut by any means, and the Lions have been trying, and they're home, catching 3.5 at home. I don't hate it. It could be a field goal game either way. My next lock, number 2, is the Titans. So I've been fading the Titans for weeks. I actually picked them over the Bills, but I just haven't been sold on them as like a true winning team. And this line is very reflective of that. So they're on the road at Indianapolis this week. They're only laying 1.5. If you just looked at these teams' records, if you just looked at the talent on these teams, especially on the offensive side, this line should be more than 1.5. So it's fishy to me that the Colts are only grabbing 1.5 at home, plus 108 on the money line. So really not any juice there either. So this could be a trap very well, but just seeing how they've played, just having beaten the Bills and the Chiefs, who, coming into the season were the clear 2 best teams in the AFC, I'm taking 1.5 over the Titans, who essentially, if they win this game, can really start to run away with the division. I think they see that. Jonathan Taylor is great. Derrick Henry is better. Carson Wentz is not good. Ryan Tannehill is better. You look at the wideouts. You have Pittman and whoever else you want to say over there. Brown is better. Julio is healthy or not, but he's probably better. The defense, they just held the Chiefs to 3 points. The Chiefs are struggling, but their offense is not. And to hold them to 3 points is kind of insane. Taking the Titans laying 1.5.
I also agree with you on the Titans here. I think this line's a little inflated towards the Colts based on their performance on Sunday night at San Francisco. That was a big win for them. And they come back home, so they're getting a little bit more respect than I believe they should. Titans, I really wanted to take them against the Chiefs last week, but you convinced me to go the other route.
I know, my bad.
And that was one of our few mistakes that we've led people astray on so far this season. But I really like the Titans team. Derrick Henry has been an absolute monster all year. I think he has another big game on the road. He's going to get a lot of touches. And I think the Titans cover this easily.
Lock it up. What's your second lock?
That is my second lock.
Oh, you got the same second lock as me, so we're both going for this. All right, so that's a double lock. That's a podcast lock right there.
Yes, it is.
We're absolutely hitting that one. The Chiefs was my bad last week, and I should say too, just as a personal note, that was my first losing week of the season last year. So we have been profitable the first 6 weeks, which is kind of insane. So we're gonna pull it back in week 8, and we're gonna get some more of these locks on the board. My third and final lock. The Panthers catching 3 in Atlanta. I just went through the other end of this nightmare last week. If the Falcons can't cover 2.5 against the Dolphins, they definitely can't cover 3 against the Panthers. The Panthers were a great team the first couple weeks of the season. They faded a little bit, and you want to talk about how much better McCaffrey is than average replacement. Chuba is useless out there. I know he's getting some stats here and there just because, he's all they got in the backfield, but he's dropping screens for Sam Darnold that McCaffrey catches. Just not a safety valve the way McCaffrey is and makes that offense tick. I know he's not back this week again, but I think this is a slugfest. So the total is 46. That seems light to me too. The over is only minus 106, so I'm kind of confused as to why that happens. I guess because the Panthers just played a baseball game score last week against the Giants. But the Falcons can score. The Panthers can score. I think Darnold maybe gets it together. I know he hasn't been doing so hot lately, but I just like them grabbing 3. Worst case, they lose by a field goal. The Falcons do not blow teams out. I don't think that's going to be the case this week, especially in the division game. I'm taking the 3.
Yeah, I don't trust either of these teams, so I'm staying very far away from this game completely. The Panthers have burned me twice already, I believe, this year on locks. But I am going with what we had discussed earlier. And against the spread, the only undefeated team left in NFL football, which is the Dallas Cowboys.
The boys, all right.
Cousins with Micah Parsons and company. I love Dak in this situation. He's indoors. I think Zeke's going to have a big game. Receivers are going to have a big game. They're going to be able to contain Dalvin Cook. I like the Cowboys here by a touchdown. I think this line's a little short for them. 3.5 would have been better, but I think they take this by a touchdown. I'm taking the boys.
Yeah, well, it's on the road, right? So that's why they're not catching more than a field goal. But this line is minus 118 for the boys and only minus 104 for the Vikings. So that's trending in a direction that we'll probably see minus 3 by kickoff and then see what happens with the very late money. But we talked last week about information betting versus value betting. And I have seen both ends of this spectrum come true for me this week. Number one, when I screwed up and took the Packers early because I thought I was getting value there, more information came along later in the week, and now all of a sudden I lose a lot of value. So that looks like a bad bet. Conversely, the Falcons line opened at -1 or a pick 'em. And then when I took it, it was -2, and it actually got up to -2.5. So you win that bet at -1 if you take it early. You lose that bet if you take it at -2, you push, or you lose it at 2.5 late in the week. So point being, I think this line gets to 3. If you like the Cowboys, you take them now. If you like the Vikings, like I do, we'd probably wait to get this at a full field goal or more. So Ken's 3 locks. Browns -3 over Steelers. Titans -1.5 over Colts. Panthers +3 over the Falcons. Burke's 3 locks. Lions +3.5 against the Eagles. Titans again -1.5 against the Colts. A double lock there. And Cowboys laying 2.5 at Minnesota. Going to have to wait to Sunday night to see how that one plays out. So those are our Week 8 locks. They're all going to hit, so certainly lock those in. College football, a little touch on that. Burke was on a hot streak, kind of ended this season. I think he went 500 this weekend. Don't tell me Penn State was one of your bets.
No, I did not bet on Penn State, but I'm going to get to that a little bit later. But, I went 500 this week, first 500 or less week in the last month. Not terrible. Did finish up on the day. But I was looking for a little bit more. Saw some disappointing performances out there with Purdue against Wisconsin. I thought that was going to be a sure thing. And then I believe there was one other one with there was another one that just burned me. I'm trying to think of what it was. Anyway, we're going to look to bounce back this week, get back above 500 and continue this streak rolling through the end of October and hopefully carry it into November when we start getting into some big-time rivalry and playoff implication games. Now, speaking of Penn State, they made history this week as taking part in what is considered now the longest college football game in history, going 9 overtimes against a –
Is that the best game or the worst game you've ever seen? Because I was in the movies. I don't watch a lot of college football anyway, but I was checking the score in the movies.
I was at
they can't even do these 2-point conversions, man.
I was at a wedding this weekend while this game was going on, so I didn't really follow along, but I did catch about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter in the first 2 overtimes before I had to go out for photos and stuff, and we had to actually get some of my friends married. So didn't get to watch the whole game, but was getting updates on my phone, and obviously during pictures I hear the buzz in my pocket. And of course, it's our best pal Gleason, just absolutely ready to rip me a new one because Penn State loses this game. But what I really want to discuss here are the new overtime rules that college football implemented, and it was put on display in full that they have some work to do to figure this out. So typically what has happened in the past, teams play, you start at the 25-yard line, kick a field goal, or you can score a touchdown. If you score the touchdown, you can kick the extra point. That held par for the first 2 overtimes. Then once third overtime came around, you could kick the field goal, but if you scored a touchdown, you had to go for 2. What changed this year was this. The first overtime, you could do whatever you want, kick the extra point if you scored a touchdown, field goal, whatever. Second overtime, kick the field goal, but if you scored the touchdown, you had to go for 2 in the second overtime. And then from the third overtime on, these teams would have to alternate 2-point conversions in order to break the tie. So you're getting 1 play to score a touchdown and then 1 play to stop them, and then that's just what the overtime is. Now, in theory, it makes sense because it would speed up the overtime aspect in college football because there's no time limit like there is in NFL football. But you run into a scenario like we ran into on Saturday where these teams could not find their way 2 yards ahead of them into the end zone to break this tie. And what was funny too was you'd run 2 plays, and then the teams had to walk to the other side of the field and then run the next 2 plays for the next overtime. And then they'd have to walk back to the other side of the field until they broke the tie. So this happened about 5 or 6 times. There's just stagnant. There's issues. College football really needs to take what happened here into consideration to figure out how to clean this up, because you watch 2 very poor teams execute short yardage situations on Saturday, and it resulted in an absolute debacle for Penn State, ruined any chance at the playoff that they had left, if they had any left. I know Gleason's going to say they don't even deserve to be ranked. They got a tough stretch.
You think Gleason's listening to this? No way.
I think he is. He's going to be forced to listen to this next week. But there's some work college football has to do with cleaning up these new overtime rules.
So let me ask you a question, though. Is this an incompetent rule, or are these just 2 incompetent teams? Because you feel like you should be able to score from 2 yards out at least once in 2 or 3 tries, right? So isn't this just total incompetence from these teams?
Well, I think you ran into a situation where it's very difficult for teams to throw into the end zone from the 2-yard line. You just got so many people.
Yeah, but shouldn't they get better at that?
But yes, they should. But you run into a very bad Illinois team and a Penn State team that can't run the football, and it was a perfect storm and a perfect disaster, and it just makes every single sense in the world why it lasted 9 overtimes with the 2 teams that were on the field in this game. One team should have taken care of business early. They didn't. They have issues to deal with, and the result is a upset 9 overtime loss to a 2-4 or a 2-5 Illinois team, which is gross. I'm sick to my stomach. I haven't seen Penn State win in 3 weeks. They're at Ohio State next week, so that trend is probably continuing. They're in for a long stretch the rest of the way, and it's going to be stressful for me. So any hair that I have left on my head is probably going to be gone by the end of the season.
Well, real quick on this, that's all right. You can wear that Papago hat on our next pod too. What is that?
It is a golf course out in Arizona. Actually, I believe it's Arizona State's home course, and if it's not, that's where they have their practice facility. So, hat looked cool. I needed a hat.
Yeah,
been winning a lot of bets wearing it, so I'm going to continue wearing it until it goes.
Yeah, you wear it to the casino next weekend. We'll have some good mojo going.
I will.
Last note on college football, and you know a lot more about it than I do. I admittedly do not watch a lot of college football. I don't watch a lot of college sports in general. This, to me, is part of why I don't watch college sports. It is just a total abomination that these teams could not score 16 consecutive times, or however long it was. Maybe they scored once from 2 yards away. And I understand it's a different game than the NFL, and college basketball is probably even more of a different game than the NBA is, just because it's played differently, it's spaced differently. There's different points of emphasis, different pace, right? But man, I watch the NFL teams. They could score at will, literally at will, from the 1 or 2 yard line. I can't believe that a college team couldn't score once from the 2 yard line. So maybe the rule is broken. Maybe they need to fix the overtime, and the NFL overtime sucks too. So then they've improved that, and it's still not great. What's your proposal for the change, I guess?
I would suggest, I would still start at the 25 yard line, but instead of going right to 2-point conversions, maybe reduce it to 15 yards, maybe 10 yards, and run full plays. I think, at least for the ties, you can't have ties in college football, especially how like bowl games and stuff and everything gets settled. But I think you just continue to reduce the amount of yards once an overtime starts. I wouldn't say you have to go for 2 either, but eliminate the crap about the 2-point conversions and then walking down to the other side of the field for the next overtime. Just takes up too much time. Just stay on the same side of the field. Nobody's going anywhere. There's no need to go to the other side. Fans are going to be loud regardless. They got some work to do. I would suggest, though, maybe just decreasing the yards each overtime to make it. I don't know. I really don't know. But what I just saw on Saturday is not going to work long term. in
All
my
right, so
opinion.
you call somebody up. I don't think college football has a commissioner, right? I guess it would help if they did have a commissioner for stuff like this.
No,
But maybe that's
they have the CFP committee, and
well, they have a committee, right? But yeah, they don't have a somebody making these decisions.
I don't think it's the NCAA, and the NCAA, as we all
Well,
know,
they have
is
people in
just
charge of each conference, right? Like the Big Ten has a commissioner.
they are incompetent in making productive
Yeah,
changes.
correct,
So
correct.
we
So
all
hey,
know
maybe
that.
Burke can run for this position and he can impose this change. I like it. That'll be his first order of business. I like it. All right, so hey, no ties in college football. Also, no ties in the NBA. We've had some great NBA action the last couple nights. Some teams are playing really well. Some of the rookies are playing really well. Admittedly, it's the middle of football season, so I know a lot of people are still tuned in there, but it's good to see these kids playing early. It's good to see the stars coming out, kind of doing what we thought. Teams like the Hornets and the Bulls that got a lot better off the offseason are actually winning. I'm going to throw some props out there, but first I want to get Burke's take on a couple fake trades. So Burke doesn't, I'm probably more tuned into the NBA, but Burke is aware of, the names, right? So we're aware with what's going on with Ben Simmons. And I'm going to throw you a couple trades out there, and you tell me if you would do them if you're Philadelphia, and if you would do them if you're the opposing team. All right. So the first trade that I want to throw out there is a Kings trade for Ben Simmons to go to Sacramento. Kings throwback for Ben Simmons. Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, and a first-round pick. Who says no?
I would hope the Kings say no to that.
You think?
I think that's
too much.
I think that's too much for Ben Simmons. I know you are very high on him. I am not. I just don't. There's guys you build teams around who are like good character guys who want to win. Ben Simmons is not that guy from what I've seen. I think they're giving up way too much. Now, if I'm Philly, I would do that 100% of the time.
I'd probably do that both ways.
Much for Ben Simmons.
I don't know, man, because then you end up with Fox, Simmons, and Halliburton. If you're the Kings, I think that's an all right shake, and you get some value back for if you're a Sixer. All right. So, anyways,
which one of those guys is going to shoot?
Well, Fox. I think Fox is a mid-30s three-point shooter. Yeah, I mean he's a scorer, right?
I thought he was a slasher,
and he's a true point guard. So I think that takes some of the pressure off Simmons. Plus, speaking of pressure, you go out to Sacramento, there ain't no pressure to win out there. He can kind of do his thing. And that's why I like this next team as well. So Portland, obviously Portland's been the hotspot landing destination for Simmons. I would have done McCollum for Simmons straight up like 3 months ago. I think that's a fair shake both ways. Both teams address a need, get some scoring in Philadelphia. Huh?
Doing now. I would do that now.
I don't know that Portland would do it now, but maybe if they do, I think if that's still on the table, I do it both ways. You get scoring in McCollum in Philadelphia. It looks like Maxey is a competent enough point guard. He could be really something that he could play alongside CJ and make CJ more of a combo guard or a pure two guard. Then you send Simmons off to Portland. You vastly improve your defense. You pair him with Dame, who's a scorer and a true point guard. You let Simmons do some more off-ball stuff, help him on the defense side, help him, initiate the offense when needed. I think that's an awesome deal. But if they're not going to do that because they want Lillard, here's how you get Lillard. You tell me who says no here. Dame Lillard goes to Philly. Philly sends back to Portland. Ben Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, and a first-round pick. That's got to be enough.
Yeah. For Philly to solve their problems and get a perennial superstar, yes, I would agree.
Well, then they have two. I think you have Dame and Embiid, and you say we'll figure it out around those guys.
That is a pick and roll nightmare.
Yeah, I think so. Nightmare. And then Portland gets a lot better. We want to talk about better defensively. Simmons and Thybulle, who, Philly was one of the best defenses in the league last year. You send those two defensive player of the year candidates to Portland. That's their biggest need. McCollum can still score and initiate some offense. They love that kid, Onofre Simons. They love him, apparently, so he can bring up the ball as a point guard. I think that's a trade that works both ways. That might be a little much. You might need like a third team in there or something, but I think I would do that both ways. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. If that deal is proposed, both teams should agree on that ASAP.
All right, third deal. Lakers. Carmelo Anthony for Ben Simmons, straight up.
Yeah,
I don't know. Do we do that deal 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Maybe.
If Simmons was I think that's a lose-lose for everybody.
Yeah, well, I'm
Ben Simmons
messing with
Ben Simmons will not work well with that team. Just with it doesn't make sense. He's going to clog up the middle. He can't shoot. He's got
Yeah.
Westbrook already to deal with, who's got the ball. So that trade does not make sense to me at all. And
Yeah,
Carmelo
I
is
mean, there's
old.
no way. That's obviously just a BS trade. There's no way he could get to the Lakers, especially not for Carmelo. But man, it would be
Straight up.
interesting.
Straight up.
That would be hey, maybe after Melo's performance the other night, he put up 28 points or whatever. He was on fire, literally putting the team on his back. Think of that, 2021. You have a team with LeBron, AD, and Russ Westbrook, and Carmelo is putting them on his back to lead them to a first win of the season.
The
That's
guy is a
nuts.
true scorer, and that's about all he could do in the NBA
That
is score.
that's about it. That's about it. Did you see the All 75 list of the NBA that came out?
I've seen bits and pieces. I don't know what the whole list is. I
Well,
do know
Carmelo
James.
made it,
Carmelo should make it.
and he
He's
should.
one of the
He
best
should.
scorers of all time. I know James Harden's on there. I know
Harden's on
Durant's
there,
on
and
there.
that's fine. Durant's
I
obviously.
know Klay Thompson got
Yeah, he
mixed.
feels like he got hosed. I don't think he got hosed because if you're talking like, is he one of the best 75 NBA players ever? Yeah, probably. But I think a lot of guys today are better than their past counterparts, but they're doing it on legacy. They're doing it on, importance to the league. So, I mean, could you put him on there? Sure, but you got to take somebody off. There's two like glaring omissions to me. Number one is Dwight Howard. I cannot believe, and I just got to rant about this for a minute because I've been talking with our other friend Nate about this all week. Leaving Dwight Howard as an omission off this list is a absolute effing travesty. Can't even talk straight. So
A tragedy too.
It's a tragedy and a travesty all in one. It's ludicrous. It's insane. Dwight Howard has 8 All NBA teams. He won Defensive Player of the Year 3 straight times. He was the best center in the league between Shaq and whoever you want to say came next, right? But he like held that torch for a while. He was just insanely good, a freak of nature in his early career, even with the Rockets, right? He was just out of his mind. 8 All-NBAs, 8 All-Stars, 3 Defensive Player of the Years. Defined the generation of a big man. He has to be on that list. I think that's a disgrace.
Yeah, I would agree. I would assume the last several years of his career probably hurt his
Won a
chances
title.
of making. Yeah, but was he the focal point? No.
No, but I mean, he contributed. Of course, he's not going to be the focal point. You got LeBron and AD there, but he contributed.
I guess also that's the weird COVID season, so it's kind of tough to gauge on that. But I could see.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. He had such a legacy before that. You know what I mean?
I would agree, and if he was able to continue that, I think, and not have all the sideshow acts that came up after he left Orlando.
I think that's what it is. People just don't like him. Like Dwight was he was a likable guy early on, but then he's doing the Superman stuff. He's
especially if you got writers, anything like the baseball writers who picked the guys to join the Hall of Fame there. If you're not liked or you cheat or whatever, you got zero chance. And I think that may have hurt Dwight's chances of making this All 75 team.
Yeah, I guess. But I think that's incorrect. And the other second omission that I think is kind of insane is T-Mac, Tracy McGrady. I think that guy's got to be on the list. He was unstoppable for 5 to 6 years. He averaged 34 points a game. And I know this because I was looking up the other night. 34 points a game back in 2004. You know how many points that would be today? That's probably pushing 40. 34 points a game in 04. There were conversations that people were having, like legitimate arguments that were valid. Is he better than Kobe? Is he better than Iverson? And those were like fair arguments to have either way. I think if you're like, he could have been the best player in the NBA for a year or two. And to leave him off the list just because of longevity not being there, I think is unfair because we've seen his peak and it's not a potential thing because we've seen it happen. It's not like, Cade Cunningham is the best player, maybe. Tracy McGrady was the best player in the league. What's the difference between him and Melo other than longevity?
Yeah, I mean, T-Mac was on some teams that just didn't perform well. I don't think his Houston Rockets teams made playoffs.
He never won anything of note.
When he's with the Raptors and the Magic, he was in the same boat. He never had like a partner in crime he had Yao for a little bit, but Yao wasn't Shaq or anything. Yao's not AD. But T-Mac, I believe, should have made this team because he was just an absolute stud. Even if it was for a 5 to 6 year stretch, he was unguardable. Everybody knew he was going to get the ball. And you talk about that 13 points in 30 seconds ordeal that against the Spurs to come back and win the game. How many people in the world could do that against professional athletes, and he's one of the very few. I would agree T-Mac should have made the list, but
Yeah,
I could
T-Mac
also
was
see
nuts.
why he didn't.
Just like the definition of a hooper, right? Like that's what we want to see when we play basketball is these guys that just go out there and like know how to score. They know how to get around these guys. And we see that today, but not quite as much. It's shooters now. You have some scorers like Mel. You still watch Melo, right? He's like just this old school, gets the ball in the wing, does a couple jabs, and like he knows what his move's going to be, and he'll find a way to score. But McGrady was that like times 1,000 in his prime. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
So the list is okay. I'm fine with it, but those two omissions should have been there. So moving on to some props for tonight. By the time you guys hear this, these games will be done. But I did tweet these picks out, at least one or two of them. So follow the Twitter for more picks. And I posted this too. Just because we're not tweeting doesn't mean we're not betting. So if you want our lean on a game, tweet at us, DM us, get a way to get in touch with us, and we will give you our read for that game because me and Burke bet probably every night of the week. We don't tweet out all our picks, but we try to tweet out when we can or if we feel strongly about something, but definitely hit us up. So tonight is a good example of a couple props and a couple lines that I like. Number one, Jalen Green, the rookie in Houston. This morning, he was plus 520 to score 20 points. He just put up over 30 against the Celtics in the last game. This dude's going to be a scorer. Like somebody has to score in that Rockets team, and it's not going to be anybody other than him. I think that his prop at 13.5 for the regular point total, minus 108 juice to the over, that's a lock tonight. The game starts in about half an hour. As of right now, it's about 8 o'clock. I think that 13.5 is a lock. 5-1 odds for him to score 20. I'm taking that too. I did take it already. Jalen Green's going to score in bunches tonight, so let's keep our eye on that one. Second prop of the night I like is another scoring prop, RJ Barrett over 14.5 points. Last season, his prop was around 13.5, 14.5 every game too. I think this is supposed to be his breakout year. He hasn't done it the first couple games, but that doesn't mean he won't do it. He's back in the Garden tonight at home. I think this should be maybe 15.5. So I like taking the extra value. I think, maybe even he gets to 20. So I love those two scoring props, Green 13.5, Barrett 14.5. I just like catching these guys early. First of the two games I like is the Nuggets catching 7.5 over the Jazz. The Jazz are very good, and they win by a lot. But the Nuggets are pretty good too. And if you're giving me 7.5 points with the former or last year's MVP over the Jazz, who have not been known to take many nights off, but hey, it's a Tuesday in the middle of the regular season, so if you're going to fade the Jazz, now is probably the time to do it. Also, look for the Jazz in these spots on these televised games. They don't do well against those teams. I noted last year. I don't know if this one's televised or not, but I would still take the Nuggets plus 7.5. And the last one I like is the Warriors minus 9 over the Thunder. That 9 seems way too low. I bet you we see easily double digits by the first quarter. Warriors are 8-1 against the spread this year. They beat the Thunder by 30 points on average last season. And I just think that 9 is some good value. So those are my 4 picks for the NBA. You got any thoughts on those?
I do like your Warriors pick. I think they're off to a pretty good start this season. Jalen Green, I like too. Think he has potential to go way over his prop total. He looks like a bona fide star, and I think he was the one that actually came out and was complaining why he wasn't the number 1 pick in the draft over Cade Cunningham. I think he's out to prove why he deserved to be the number 1 pick, and you're going to see a big season out of him the rest of the way.
He's a G League guy, so he's pretty much already played pro for a little bit.
Right, and I think that helps a little bit. I mean, you saw what happened with LaMelo Ball playing or overseas instead of going to college. He was more pro ready than a lot of some of the guys who go through the college ranks and make it to the pros. But obviously, that doesn't happen with everybody. You get people that think they're better and they get stuck in the G League and never make it to the show. So college may be the safe route in that, but at least with LaMelo, went right into a Rookie of the Year campaign for him. It looks like he's off to a pretty solid start this year too. I haven't really followed him too much, but I think Jalen Green is off to a similar path like LaMelo was last year and could win Rookie of the Year this year.
I love it. So those are my 4 locks for the NBA tonight. We'll let you know how we do. You'll have already known by the time this airs, but you can look back and see the 4-0 that you guys missed out on by not placing these bets. So follow the Twitter. We tweet these out. Follow the Twitter, and hopefully you're winning money right now. Finally tonight, our betting strategy of the week. Like we do every week, we like to give you guys one or two betting strategies that we imply that you can do the same moving forward to make some more money. Because remember, we're not playing against the house, we're playing against other bettors. You need to be better than the other bettors. Same thing like in blackjack, you're going to lose more hands than you win. So the hands that you win, you want to make sure you're doubling when you're supposed to. You want to make sure you're splitting when you're supposed to. Taking 3-2 money on blackjack, all that good stuff. So the strategy that I want to talk about for tonight is adjusted lines. So FanDuel does this. A lot of other books let you do this too, but you can take lines higher than what they are for enhanced odds. So for instance, tonight, Jalen Green, his over-under is 13.5 on points. That's about a normal payout, right? You usually see about -110. If you think, hey, that line is wrong, then you can up it and you can put more on the stake and you can say, all right, instead of 13.5 points, let's go over 20 points or 19.5 points. And what are the odds for that? Well, it's 5-1. Well, that sounds a little more enticing, right? So if you think he's just going to crush his prop, there's an opportunity for that. We saw one last night in Alvin Kamara, and we tweeted this out too. Alvin Kamara's receiving prop was 33.5 yards is what it opened at. So we took, or I took anyway, 33.5 over. But then I also took him over 50 and over 60 because I thought he was going to crush that. And he did. It turns out he got about 108, 110, something like that. He was their leading receiver by a mile last night. So we got enhanced odds at, 3-1, 5-1 at these higher value plays. Also, last Thursday night, we loved the Dearance Johnson prop at 56.5 rushing yards or whatever. And he got 120. That's an instance where if we like that line and we thought it was wrong, we should have done it. We should have upped it. We should have done that. And we do this thing called a ladder a lot, right? And I don't know if it makes sense to bettors, but it's fun for us. So why don't you talk about that, what we do a ladder for, Burke?
Yeah, so basically, if we really like a line to be surpassed by a particular player, we'll take them at, say, for example, you got Kamara yards, whatever it was, at 40. If we really like them to get to maybe 100, we'll also take them at 50. We'll take them at 60. We'll take them at 80. We'll take them at 90. So the odds continue to increase in our favor, but we're also profiting on multiple bets on the same guy, knowing he's going to hit all of them. So it's just a better chance to profit on that. And basically what you're saying, you want to climb the ladder to get to the point, to the total that you want him to ultimately achieve. So instead of taking him once, you're going to take him 6 times to cover all the lower numbers to get to the higher number you think he's going to pass.
Right, and we're also hedging in a way, right? You say, if you're going to lay 6 units, why don't you just lay it all on the top one? Well, we want to make sure we lock in some profit along the way too, in case we only put it all on 90 and he gets 86. We were right that he blew his prop out of the water. He beat it by 50 yards, but we didn't make any money because we bet too high. So we like to do, let's say a full unit on the normal prop. That ensures, hey, at least if he hits that, we're not losing money tonight. We're going to guarantee that we win some money. And then maybe on the way up, we do quarter units, or we do a half unit on 40, a quarter unit on 50, a quarter unit on 60, you know what I mean? And we kind of ladder it up that way. So yeah, we're a little safer, but we're also making sure we make more money off that quarter unit as it goes up. I think that this is something you can employ going forward. Hell, if you even like Jalen Green tonight, take him over 25 points. I don't know what those odds are, but I'm sure it's crazy. And if you can put a full unit on him over 13.5, that ensures that you won't lose money. And to me, if you're getting basically a free bet on him over 25 points for 10-1 odds or whatever that is, I think that's a great call because we're all about locking in profit. We want to win. We're not playing not to lose. We're playing to win. So anytime we can get a free bet, we take advantage of it, right?
Absolutely. And the more money you can make on a single guy, the better chance that you can increase your bankroll.
Holy shit. So he's plus 1460 to score 25 points tonight.
Plus 1460 to score 25 points. What time's the game start?
8:40. You got about half an hour there, bud.
Actually, as we're recording this, I'm going to open up FanDuel and lock that in.
So are you going to ladder it, though? Or are you going to just take the 25? Wow, talk about value. He's gone down to plus 290 to score 20 or more points. 520 this morning. That's incredible.
Yeah, we're gonna take the plus 25 right now. So
all right, so we're going to go for broke tonight. And we're going to say Jalen Green scores 25 or more points. I'm also taking him over 13.5. That's almost even money. And then, over 20 points, I have it at the plus 520 or whatever it is. And then why not? Let's go for a little sprinkling on the 25 plus points. Let's do that. So that sounds good to me. And hey, maybe we'll be rich before this next podcast airs. So that's all we got for today. Tweet at us if there's anything you want us to talk about in the next episode. We probably got, one more episode before we do a live showing, because we're going to be together down at Valley Forge Casino for a weekend, winning some money down there. We'll try to catch you from the tables. We'll try to catch you from the sports book. We'll try to catch you from the hotel bar. Hopefully we're winning some money, not losing some money, but we're going to have some special guests down there, so they'll be filtering in and out too. That's all I got. You got anything to plug tonight?
No, I just let's go Braves, and looking forward to seeing everybody next week down in Philadelphia, and hopefully a lot of people can see the kind of friends we love and trust with some of our picks, and maybe they can become part of the regular crew on the show.
That'd be great, man. That'd be great. Hopefully we're reaching some people. I know we got a couple more views on these last couple episodes, so that's great. We're trying to really make something out of this. I think we're getting out some good advice, and everything's free. We're not charging any money for this, so everything we do here is just for fun and for free, because we like to gamble and we know a little bit about it, and we like to share with you guys. So keep tuning in. We appreciate it. Share with your friends. And that's it. So signing off tonight, Ken Doolittle, Mike Burke. Until next time, let's go win some money.